pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. Today is June 22nd, 2020. And roll call, please.
Missouri. Here. Basil.
Here.
Whaling.
Here.
Burrows.
Here.
Meyer. Here. Kraus.
Here. Okay, we have the minutes from June 8th. Is there any corrections or changes? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any questions? Roll call.
Missouri. Yes. Basil.
Abstain.
Whaling.
Yes.
Burrows.
Yes.
Meyer. Yes. Kraus.
And do we have a clerk's report tonight?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
A little delayed. Sorry about that.
No report.
Anyone from the audience wish to address the board tonight? Under my report, the only thing that I have is obviously everybody knows that we're going into phase 4, I believe, by the end of the week, which will loosen up a lot of things. Today I checked the website and we're up to 42. I don't remember what 39 was last time, but now I noticed it's up to 42 cases. But we're holding our own. With that, Trustee Basil.
All right, consider an ordinance amending ordinance 1528 to increase the water pollution loan agreement with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency by $300,000 from $10 million to $10,300,000. This is the amount of contingency spent on the project, but the original debt ordinance only covered the base bid plus engineering costs. This amended ordinance will cover the contingency approved for the project with the IEPA. Wants the village to amend this debt ordinance. The full amount of the debt service will be $401,014 per year for 30 years. And the village has budgeted $389,344 per year. So we will have to adjust our debt service schedule. And long-range plan to add $11,670 per year to the annual debt service. This increase in debt service is achievable and the schedule will be amended. Debt service fund revenue is $479,536 per year. So if there's no questions, I'd like to consider ordinance
1329.
1329. I'd like to consider ordinance amending ordinance 1528 to increase the water pollution loan agreement with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency by $300,000 from $10 million to $10,300,000.
Motion made. Is there a second? There's a second. Any questions?
I have a correction to the motion. It's an ordinance amending ordinance 1258, not 1528. There's just a transposition of numbers there.
Anything else? There was a motion, there was a second. Roll call.
Kraus.
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes.
Burrows.
Yes.
Whaling.
Yes.
Basil.
Yes.
Missouri. Yes.
It's hard to talk with these things on.
Sorry to read.
I need a different one, that's all.
Okay, Trustee Wayne.
Okay, consider a resolution amending the rules for the Fireman's Park regarding reservations of ball fields. I'm going to defer this to village president and to the attorney.
I'm going to pass the buck to the attorney.
Okay.
I'll give you a preface to this. As we all know, we opened up the ball fields and then the floodgates opened as far as making reservations. Beecher Rec got their other reservations in, then there were other teams, traveling teams, not necessarily based in Beecher, not Beecher Rec sanctioned teams that began making reservations. Started having conversations with the attorney, had conversations with Trustee Kaporis and Trustee Kraus. They had several questions, referred it to the attorney. He came up with an amendment which was included in your packet, of which he will explain and answer your questions.
So the issue is resident versus non-resident, and before, when we adopted this back in 2017, we did not have any fees for the baseball fields for residents or non-residents. So what the proposed ordinance amendment does is put for a resident $100 per field fee, and that includes up to 6 hours by the definition already. And then for a non-resident, it's $200. What we also did is included a refundable deposit of $100 per baseball field. Now, in the ordinance itself already, which we're not changing or adding, it was already there, the village administrator may waive the permit fees in whole or part for organizations that provide capital improvements to the village parks or otherwise donate or provide community services. The reason that was initially included was because of Beecher Rec, some of the other, I think it was the Lions and some of the other clubs were putting capital improvements into the park and didn't feel that was fair to charge them when, you know, they're actually contributing and giving back to the community. So that is in place now. So what this would allow is us to charge a fee for those fields, like Beecher Rec. If we feel it's appropriate, then all those fees could be waived without charging them anything for the use of the fields, kind of like it has been. They keep maintaining them, improving the park and things like that. But then that puts that fee in place for the others. That most likely discourage some from doing that, especially out of town. But that's the reason for that. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But that was the issue and how we proposed to address it.
So is the $100 like deposit or whatever, is that part of the $200 fee if you're
Yes.
from out of town? So you could get half of that back if we,
And if you noticed, it was paid in advance, non-refundable. So in other words, the teams that reserved, they would have had to pay us up front for, I think, we estimated maybe $200. They would have had to pay us that up at front, so it's non-refundable. But what was interesting was that we addressed this back in 2017, but it had to do with a non-for-profit church that wanted to be in Beecher. And at that particular point in time, we addressed all the rules, but we never applied them to the ballparks. And now this is what's basically being applied now.
And it's never been an issue before either. You never had an organized, other organization trying to come in and use them like that. It's only because ours are open and others aren't, so.
I'm sorry, I should emphasize too, Trustee Whalen, we had a discussion too, so all three trustees had a discussion about it ahead of time.
Question, this is not retroactive, correct? If they've already reserved the field, you can't go back and charge them.
Correct. This would be applied once it's adopted.
So this would go, from here on forward, we apply the fee.
Correct.
Okay.
For any new reservation? Is that what you would apply it? So any new reservation that come in, the new rules would apply, but any existing reservation that's in, we couldn't. I realize what you're saying retroactive, but my feeling is that from this day forward, so any reservation, but you're saying we still couldn't charge for that.
Any new reservation. So if they call up tomorrow for a new reservation, then that would
The
be.
fee would apply. But if they already reserved it a month ago for next week,
We're stuck with what it was.
now we are starting to get a lot of cancellations too, is that
We
correct?
did have cancellations this week, from what I understand.
I'm sure with phase 4 starting, that'll keep going.
So just to make sure that I understand this correctly, 200 for non-residents, that includes the security deposit that they
Correct.
would get back? So it's 100 for residents, do they have to pay a security deposit, or do they just get their $100 back?
It's 100 too, so they could put you in as part of the fee or whatever, but it's only $100 in total.
Okay, so they would get that back, and technically it would be like they reserved it for free once they got the security deposit back?
or is
No.
the security deposit on top of that? That's
So
kind of what I was.
yeah, they'd still have to have the security deposit, but up front they'd have to put that money up.
So if they reserved, if a resident team reserved the ball field for 1 hour, they would basically get that first hour for free if they left the field in good condition.
It's not the way I understood it. I understood that the security deposit is something separate from the fee being charged.
Yeah.
for the
Okay,
field.
so a
Okay,
resident
that's
team would
the
have
part
to
I
pay
didn't-
So
200.
technically a resident would be 200,
Correct.
a non-resident would be 300. Okay, I got
Correct.
But
it.
it's actually two separate things.
Right.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, that's the part I was asking about before.
I'm sorry if I
Yeah.
misstated that.
That's
Sorry.
okay.
And also, you might want to cover a resident too, as far as the 50%.
Oh. So the rules we put in place, so just to make it and back into it, a non-resident is anyone who doesn't meet the definition of resident, period. A resident is anyone who resides within the village of Beecher or Washington Township, any governmental agency that serves the village of Beecher residents, commercial businesses and industries within the village or the township again, And then not-for-profit organizations, clubs, churches whose membership includes at least 50% Village of Beecher residents. And then such groups are required to submit a list of membership to demonstrate the village that at least 50% reside in Beecher. So that's already in the rules and regulations that are in place currently.
So if we had applied the rules that would have been in place back then, to my knowledge, 3 of the teams would have had to pay non-resident, because they did not meet the 50% rule. That's my understanding.
And they wouldn't reserve huge blocks of time like they were.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, everyone hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Doc.
So you just said if we applied this back in 2017 to the ball field, this would not be an issue. But the way I'm reading it under resident, it says individuals who reside within the corporate limits of the Village of Beecher. 1, 2, 3, and 4 for resident, it's not and, it's any one of those.
Correct.
So if I come with my one kid on the team, and I have a travel team in Bourbon A, but my one Beecher kid's on it, I qualify as a resident. So that would not stop what's going on right now.
It's not the way I understand it, but I'll let Tim answer that.
No, that's an organization, not an individual at that point.
But what if the individual
So,
reserved
so
the
what
field?
what differentiates, I mean, if I have a resident come and reserve the field, I can bring whoever I want then, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, I assume that either the village manager or the mayor's explained the situation that we've had, the exact examples. I don't see what in here would stop what we have now going on from happening. Am I missing something?
But you're talking about an organization doing something rather than the individual at that point. And the organization is called up, as I understand it, to reserve these blocks of time because they can't use their private facilities.
But the problem is.
That's not correct. We had individual resident call up.
Hang on a minute, Tom, Doug, Tim, and everybody. Okay. Bottom line is an individual resident who lived in Beecher had a team that was out of town. Okay, so, and in all 3 cases, am I right, Todd? All 3 cases had a Beecher resident reserve the field? Or is it just 2 of the cases and the 3rd one came along?
According to the calendar that I saw, if you have them listed as an individual, not an organization. So I didn't take the call, I can't say that.
So,
There's no way what's listed on the reservation calendar.
But what Todd is saying is still
Individual,
possible.
Not an organization.
yeah, that's what I believe it is.
If one individual calls, says, I want to reserve the field, I'm a resident, I go ahead and do it and find out it's for a traveling team from Kankakee, it's kind
You
of
could
splitting
stop them
hairs
in the
there.
future from reserving it again, but that time you wouldn't be able to stop it.
But the way I also understand it too is that this is only for people who do reservations. People who don't make reservations would be able to go and use the field
If it's open.
if it's open.
Yeah.
That's the way it exists right now, yeah.
Is there any way we'd be able to change that? Well, here's the other problem, I'm afraid, the certificate of insurance, I believe, was pulled by individual, but it names, do you remember, anybody remember what it named?
You should mention the team, not the individual, because you're insuring the organization, not the
Yeah.
person. And that's how I would determine who's reserving the field, whoever's name's on that
So that would
certificate.
be a way around that.
Oh yeah, if they give you a certificate of insurance with an organization on there, then it's the organization that's doing it regardless who calls up to do the reservation.
Did you hear that, Todd?
I did, and I think that would curtail what's going on.
Yeah, we can change that,
If
and we'll look
the
at,
insurance is listed under the organization.
yeah, we can take care of that internally, I believe.
Mhm.
But how do we stop an individual calling up because they have their own individual insurance and then just giving the field to another team? Or is there nothing we can do to do that?
So they have to provide a certificate of insurance, not just their personal insurance policy when they do anything like that. So I think a certificate is something that's different, which would only be provided by an organization, similar to our contractor's license and stuff, so.
Correct.
I don't think that would be available to an individual person, unless they paid extra for it themselves.
Again, bottom line is, we'll, in the future, we'll have to take a look at the certificate of insurance, and then apply the rules from there. And then if we run into a problem where, I hope the crisis never happens again, but we'll have to, amend it if need be, if we find that another loophole down the road. Anybody else have any questions?
So I got a question as to why this wouldn't go into effect immediately once we put that in place, once we establish those fees. If the event hasn't happened yet, can't you say there's now a fee associated with this? And would you like to maintain your reservation or not?
Anytime you put a fee structure in place, it only applies prospectively, so anybody that's already reserved it and we've taken that reservation has done it under the current rules, the way they were stated prior to today. So that's why we can't charge it to anybody who has the reservation in place. Now, if they call tomorrow,
And see, that's part of the problem, is that there's been a reservation in place for, they came in and booked 2 months solid, 5 days a week, and, I mean, that's one of the things that caught my eye, is when you have two individuals come in and make a reservation, and they make a reservation over a 2 months period for 232 hours of reserved park time, 2 ball fields. This is for 2 individuals. I mean, that's like a full-time job. I mean, that's like a part-time job. I mean, that's 5 days a week,
yeah,
4 hours a day. Times 2, because it's on 2 fields. I mean, that's 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It just, to me, I mean, that's what caught my attention on this whole thing, was once I saw the reservation sheet, is that this isn't a parent with a kid on a team that's looking to their kid to get practice time. Because if that was the case, it'd be, I need a ball field for an hour and a half or 2 hours, 3 days a week, and I don't need 2 ball fields, I only need 1, I mean, so to me, it just kind of seems like excessive, and then, I don't know if you had cancellations on Friday and Saturday, but I looked at the reservation sheet, I go out there, and the fields weren't even being used Friday or Saturday, and there was reservations. I mean, can we cancel them if they're making reservations and not using them?
Saturday was a request by the police, they left it up to them. There was a Beecher rec team, and I believe there was a traveling team that reserved it. They chose not to be there because of the protest that was going on.
Okay.
Friday, I can't answer.
and we can cancel any activity with at least 2 weeks' notice if we wanted to. That's under our current rules also. So if we think there's excessive use, we could do that and utilize that.
I mean, and I can't blame, somebody in the office for taking a reservation. Somebody comes in and says, this is what I need. They're not looking at it that hard, but then, once it's all spread out on the paper, and then you see that 2 parents, and hey, I'm all, like, I'd understand it. I'd have a much easier time understanding it if it's somebody that's playing for another town. They can't use their normal facilities. Our facilities are open, and they wanna come here and use it. If you're telling me you're gonna use a field for, 2 hours of practice, you're gonna practice there 3 days a week, that's one thing, but when I sit there and I look at it, and it's reserved 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, 2 ball fields, not just 1, to me, that's excessive. I mean, that's just,
But again,
that's a lot for
under the,
2 teams,
Not
232
necessarily.
hours over a 6-week period.
not necessarily disagreeing with you, but what is in place that would have stopped us? And from what I understand, at that particular point in time, there was a scramble for everybody to try and grab every bit of time, all over the place. Anybody who called us was trying to grab all the time that they could, and it was based on timing. Okay, so bottom line is we were telling some people yes, some people no. Okay, and then they continued to book the fields. So at that particular point in time, we could only do what we do based on the advice of the attorney.
Well, that 200 an hour, that'll stop that from going on.
Yeah.
But it's still gonna be in effect for the next month or 2 if these teams decide to use that time. But it appears they're going back to where they came from.
Is there a possibility that this happens as an unwritten rule? is there a possibility we can put it in the resolution where from April 1st to July 1st, Beecher Rec customarily maintained the fields and they were the ones using the fields? Can we put something in there that says during that time, it's their fields, but they still have to give us their reservation so that if we do get another request, we have to be able to go to their reservation? Does that help us out?
No, but we can do that internally anyway. I mean, if you start getting reservations, you just call Beecher Rec and say, hey, we need your schedule. You know,
But they usually give it to us at a time.
and then,
Yeah,
and then
I
say,
mean, rec never knows like what they're gonna be practicing. I mean, couldn't we just make it to where we don't accept any reservations from whenever baseball and softball season usually starts and when it ends?
we could.
We just say we don't take any ball field reservations during this time, that it's exclusively recs. If you wanna go up there and use it on your own, you know, you have that right, it's a public park.
Yep.
But if a rec affiliated team, or Beecher Rec themselves, or whatever, a team from Beecher shows up, they have to vacate the field, because it's reserved from
And it's
March 31st to, you know,
And it's already-
October 1st, because that's when they do, you know, their spring and fall.
And it's already in there that if it's open, you can use it, but if a reserved time comes along, you have to vacate the field, so that's already in there. If you wanted to, you know, not take reservations except for Beecher Rec during whatever to whatever, we could put that in.
See, after July,
Or you could even book out in the book, just Beecher Rec through that period of time too, without a change to this. I mean, you could do it different ways depending on if they're moving their schedule around, like this year, they're probably backing things up, you know,
and we can do that internally rather than through the resolution.
yeah.
Well, that's,
My next question is though, is that if I remember right, and without asking Patty, my recollection is after July 1st, we very rarely got reservations, do you know?
See, I don't even,
Yeah, I
know
mean,
about
I could be wrong.
reservations at all.
yeah, I think they usually do fall teams and that.
I mean, we could, from now on, we can just make sure they do.
So you could black out the dates if you wanted or something for that period of time or something like that.
My other question is, with this new phase that we're going to, is that gonna allow, youth sports to start up again?
What I read today, yes.
That's the
And-
thought.
and-
So now we have an instance where Beecher Rec and Beecher affiliated teams are gonna wanna be going again and wanna be practicing, and now we have outside organizations. Can we cancel all existing reservations based on the change of phases in the, you know, governor's orders?
You could cancel anything 2 weeks out plus, just by what we have in the current regulations.
I mean, because,
Regardless of you don't even need
I
them.
mean, I think these people kind of beat Rec to the punch and got the fields reserved.
Beecher Rec called, made their reservations. When they made the reservations, Patty told me that the reservations they made were very much in line with what they normally do. Then others called, and it was basically systematically. So Beecher Rec got their reservations in first, but it was normally what they normally
Because
do.
I didn't see any Beecher Rec reservations on there.
Yeah, they're there somehow, I can't
Because
introduced.
I mean, I saw the book and I didn't see any.
Yeah, they're there, I mean, whether, I don't know how they're listed on that calendar.
I saw a Rec affiliated team, but.
But in any event, that's a thought, we could possibly cancel the reservations, give them 2 weeks' notice and anything thereafter. Or,
They should be going back to where they came from, I would assume.
and you would agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, it's in our current regulations. When they set it up underneath those regulations, so we have that right to do that. 2 weeks plus to cancel anything.
So anything after 2 weeks from today?
Yeah, we had talked, and we had every intention of somehow notifying them that there is a fee, okay, and go from there. Well, now we have teeth in it saying that your reservation is now canceled 2 weeks out, and from then on, it'll be a fee.
And I think that's just because of the fact that, you know, Rec's gonna have some opportunities, hopefully, to where they can possibly salvage.
Get their season in.
Yeah, salvage some of it, right? I mean, like like Major League, I don't know if they gotta talk with the Players Association or what, you know, maybe it's the Parents Association as to how much they can get, you know, how much of it they can get in, but, I don't think anybody wanted to get anybody's hopes up without knowing, but now that it definitely seems like this Friday, you know, you could have some rules changes where they could allow that, you know, I'd hate to see them try to put something together and have to work around out-of-town teams.
Again, my understanding was what they reserved is what they usually normally reserved, and I'll verify that tomorrow. How is it listed on our calendar, I don't know. But the one thing that I did not hear in verbally hearing about phase 4, it was on the news tonight that phase 4 outdoor activities increased to 100 people. So they could very easily have a ball game and they can't have competitive sports. So basically, in my opinion, their restrictions are gone, with the exception of the mask, sanitation, and the social distancing.
To be safe, we probably need two motions. One, adopting this agreement, this resolution. Number two, a motion of the board canceling all reservations 2 weeks from tonight with notification to all those that have reserved. That probably needs to happen.
So moved.
Okay, two separate motions. First one is adopting
And
current.
I just had one last question, is, which we can work out the, you know, for next year time frame it. Is this a dollar rate per hour, or is this for a block?
My
block.
understanding
Oh,
is, my understanding
Because
is
then
per
they-
hour.
I thought it was by the hour.
And that's what I thought too, but then I heard Tim say that if they rent it, then they get it for,
For 6 hours, it's in 6-hour blocks by field.
in here it says conditions, it'd be, 6 hours for the pavilion, fees for ball fields are based on 4-hour time period.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. We wrote this original thing to handle church picnics and stuff like that, not ball games and practice.
But I
That's the
thought when
problem.
we discussed it with Tim, we were going per hour.
That's what I thought, yeah.
But you could amend it too, if you wanna be by hour, if you wanna do a 3-hour, I mean, you kinda say it, and we can take care of that tonight still.
What we're trying to do is saying, look, it's a public park. If no one's there and you wanna risk having a practice, go ahead. But we're not reserving it for you exclusively, unless you wanna pay this premium. Because those fields were intended for the Beecher sports teams, you know?
Withdraw your motion for time being, Scott?
I withdraw.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna change it to the fees per hour rather than per block.
That's what we discussed.
That is what
But,
we discussed.
and like I said, it's 4 hours right now, as it's in here, so if we wanna change that to hourly, that's fine, we can do that, and just put it on there, it's
Yeah,
fine.
we
That's pretty much what we
agreed
agreed
to
to.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
After this is passed, would it be maybe a good idea for the public or the Parks Committee to sit down with somebody from the village to go over the internal regulations for next year? Because, I mean, I didn't know how all this stuff got booked and got crazy like that, but there should be something where if an individual calls and tries to get 50, 60 hours, some red flag should go off that, hey, this might be excessive, or, you know, maybe we need to look at limiting this.
But there was nothing in place that
I don't
we
think that
could have,
needs to be part of the resolution.
there was nothing in place that we could have stopped it at the time, Todd. The way we were taking reservations is the way we always took reservations. So now we're trying to
That's what I'm saying, maybe the Parks Committee needs, or Trustee Whaling needs to sit down with the office to see how reservations are actually being taken. Maybe come up with some new internal rules for that, so this doesn't happen. Because the resolution doesn't cover everything.
Yeah.
There was
Maybe we need to bond
red-
resolution down with all the internal controls.
There was red flags put up. As soon as this stuff started happening, Patty started full conversations with the mayor and the administrator and trying to solve it because she didn't really want to make reservations for these out-of-town groups. But there was nothing in our policy or resolution that banned her from doing that. And so she just followed the procedure. She's well aware she didn't like doing it, but she didn't have any teeth to tell anyone no. But she's very much aware of what happened and had brought it to everyone's attention. So I don't think it's an issue as to moving forward in the future. She can read the policy and, you know, we can enforce it the way it's meant to be.
And that's sort of why I'm saying, can we have a blanket policy that between this date and this date, Beecher Rec in general has the fields reserved to make it much easier for her. And yes, that is correct, there was a lot of dialogue going on trying to figure this out.
She just needs clear direction, that's all she needed, and she did not have that.
What is the hourly rate then? It's gonna be $200 an hour? Is that what we're saying?
Or
For
$100 an
non-residents?
hour plus the deposit. And then
Yeah.
that'll go in effect 2 weeks from tonight or tomorrow.
Well, it goes into effect
Well, it goes into
tomorrow,
effect tomorrow.
but all existing reservations cease after 2 weeks.
Right.
How do you
Any
want
other
the,
questions?
How do you want the,
I don't know. The first one is to amend the existing resolution, and it'll be number 2020-12, with including the amendments of the hourly rates.
so,
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second? Any questions? Roll call.
Okay, so we're approving the resolution number with the amendment to the fees to be changed to be based on an hourly rate, instead of a block plus the deposit.
Correct.
Okay.
Roll call.
Missouri,
Yes.
Basil,
Yeah.
Whaling,
yes.
Caprows,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Kraus.
Second. Sorry about that. Second motion would be to reserve the fields from April 1st to,
The second
No,
motion
it would
is
be
to,
to cancel,
I'm sorry,
Reservation.
right, the cancellation would be, I'm sorry. Cancel all existing reservations
2 weeks from today.
so move.
Is there a second?
second.
There's a second. Any questions? Roll call.
Kraus,
Yeah,
Meyer,
Yes.
Caprows,
Yes.
Whaling,
Yes.
Basil,
Yes.
Missouri.
Yes.
And the item that I mentioned would be handled internally.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, that item, trustee Forrest.
Consider a resolution authorizing the appropriation of $7,000 in MFT funds in fiscal year 1920 for the purchase of road salt. This is the amount we went over last year in the use of MFT funds, and we have to pass a supplemental appropriation for this specific item, even though we spent less than the total that was brought in. This is just part of keeping the line items clean for the audit. So I'll go ahead and make a motion, resolution number
2020-13.
I'll make a motion approving resolution 2020-13, authorizing the appropriation of $7,000 in MFT funds for fiscal year 1920 for the purchase of road salt.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions? Roll call.
Missouri,
Yes.
Basil,
Yeah.
Whaling,
Yes.
Caprows,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Kraus.
yes,
There's a delay, yeah.
Keep forgetting he's out there.
Consider a motion authorizing the transfer of $28,842.44 from the infrastructure sales tax account to the MFT account to pay for thermoplastic paint striping in 2019. Although the vendor we used was IDOT approved and the bid letting process was through the Suburban Purchasing Co-op, MFT funds cannot be used for this bid since the process of the IDOT bid letting did not happen. So this is just another cleanup of, for the auditor. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion authorizing the transfer of $28,842.44 from the infrastructure sales tax account to the MFT account to pay for thermoplastic paint striping in 2019.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions? Roll call.
Kraus,
yeah,
Meyer,
Yes.
Caprows,
Yes.
Whaling,
Yes.
Basil,
Yes.
Missouri.
Yes.
Consider a resolution of appropriation in the amount of $1,600 to pay for the application for the SDP funds for the Church Road resurfacing. We've already completed the application and have been awarded the funds in 2022, but we did not include the application amount in our original resolution of appropriation. This should take care of that.
It's Gould Street, I'm sorry, John, not Church Road. I just caught that, it's Gould Street.
I'll go ahead, resolution number 2020-14.
Yep.
I'll go ahead and make a motion approving resolution 2020-14 for the appropriation of $1,600 to pay for the application for the SDP funds.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second?
There's a second, any questions? Roll call.
Kazarick?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Whaling?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
Consider a resolution of appropriation and an engineering services agreement with Beecher and Woman in the amount of $16,000 for the Phase 1 environmental assessment and plan for the Gould Street resurfacing project from Penfield to Gould. This is the Phase 1 environmental work required to free up the funds for the resurfacing project. This project will be bid out along with Penfield Street in 2022 to make it one large project. Funds reserved for this portion of the project is $176,000. The village will be required to pay a 20% local match of the $35,200 in 2023. So resolution 2020-15.
Yes, sir.
I'll go ahead and make a motion approving resolution 2020-15 for an appropriation and engineering services agreement with Beecher and Woman in the amount of $16,000 for Phase 1 of the environmental assessment and plan for the Gould Street resurfacing project from Penfield to Gould.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second, any questions? Roll call.
Kraus?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Whaling?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Kazarick?
Yes.
Consider a motion approving an addendum to the original construction management services contract with Beecher and Woman Engineers, increasing the contract amount by $5,000 from $628,000 to $633,000 for services rendered at the Beecher wastewater treatment plant. This covers the contingency portion that we approved earlier, increase of the $300,000. That would be their share for the construction management services. So I will go ahead and make a motion approving an addendum to the original construction management services contract with Beecher and Woman Engineers, increasing the contract amount by $5,000 from $628,000 to $633,000 for services rendered at the Beecher wastewater treatment plant.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There is a second, any questions? Roll call.
Kazarick?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Whaling?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
And then, I'm sure at the close of the meeting, after the announcements, I'll request for executive session to discuss the collective bargaining with Local 399 for the Department of Public Works.
On the announcements, the Build Illinois Fast Track grants will be announced on June 30th. As soon as we hear, you will know. I haven't heard of any projects being released yet, but I've been told June 30th is the release date for the Fast Track. We have applied also for the Long Track grants, so if we don't get a Fast Track grant, we'll still be in play for the Long Track grant. PZC meeting is scheduled for this coming Thursday. The workshop will be on the annexation and rezoning of Wayland Wilderness.
Is there a motion to adjourn into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Kraus?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Whaling?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Kazarick?
Yes.